you have to have somebody that is focused on digital. Have to, like in this day and age, digital, social, whatever that means, because it is really, it's impossible for your fundraiser development person to also be trying to think about social posts and do it in the right way. So that's probably the biggest thing is like the people.
Welcome to the Impact Roadmap, a podcast designed to give you the practical, concrete steps to grow your nonprofit or future-forward business in a sustainable way. I'm your host, Joey Goon. Let's get into the episode. So, Dana Snyder, welcome to the Impact Roadmap podcast. I'm so excited to have you. And just a quick bio on Dana. She is a spirited fundraiser, a digital marketing guru, a charismatic nonprofit advocate, an infectiously energetic agent for change. I love your pictures on all social media. Like, you just seem like this vivacious, energetic person that has this exuberance, this lust for life. And that's what I admired most about you when I initially reached out and asked you to come onto the podcast. It's like, you just have
Thank
energy.
you. Oh my gosh, the biggest trick to that, honestly, is have your best friend do your photography.
You feel more comfortable on the other side of the camera for sure.
100%. It was so funny to actually, she was one of my bridesmaids and she's a fabulous photographer. And I've never seen her in her work element. So it was so funny. She was like, okay, now turn and smile and do this and do that. And I was like, you are talking so fast. You're making me sweat. So therefore I was just laughing because she was cracking me up. So you were seeing like true happiness and laughter. And so, yeah, that's my tip for that.
I love it.
If you can.
So Dana, you are the founder and the CEO of Positive Equation, which is an organization that really helps nonprofits create and execute digital marketing strategies that work for them and their agencies. And you've partnered with organizations like Dress for Success, American Idol, which I want to talk more about. Maybe we could do like a duet here. And the Global Food Bank. And you're an expert in all things social media. You're also an excellent keynote speaker. I've listened to your keynotes. I listened to the one at the NIO Summit from last year, Tim Kachuriak, a mutual friend of ours. You also have the Missions to Movement podcast, which is awesome. Any gaps that I may have missed in your bio that you want to fill the audience in on?
I think what's been interesting is as we all look at our bios, I think from time to time, is you try and always figure out, is this still like me? Does this still represent who I am and who I say I am, which is just a good note for everybody. Like anything that you have published about yourself or that you have your LinkedIn bio to like just go back and tweak. I would say the things that I've really focused in the past year and a half or so is my work in social media, yes, but specifically in like the paid advertising space with Facebook and Instagram. Because you can't be an expert in everything. Like, don't come to me about TikTok because I'm not going to be able to tell you what to do. And I won't coin that. And monthly giving programs. Because I am a monthly giver, I have become kind of obsessed with the programs and the growth and sustainability that they can create for organizations. So within the vein of what I do, I would say those are the two buckets that I spend most of my time in.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your company. Like, give us the history.
Oh my goodness. So I launched, it'll be 6 years, which is amazing and incredible because you hear as an entrepreneur and primarily like solo entrepreneur, I've hired freelancers here and I've never had a full-time staff. I started as an agency, as a social media agency, because that's what I knew. I came from New York City and I was working for a big PR firm and that's what we did. And I honestly, in the first like 2 years, got really burnt out. I got super busy, which was amazing from a revenue perspective. And I was working with these great clients. I was living in Los Angeles at the time and things were like moving and grooving. But then I couldn't hire like the right people fast enough. And because I was hiring consultants, they would then find full-time gigs and then I would lose them. And therefore, then I was having to manage a whole project, which was not what the original like goal was. So then I segued really in, which is where American Idol comes into play. When I was hitting this like high point of busyness, low point of being stressed out, just living in Los Angeles opens itself up to unique opportunities. And one of them happened to be a digital producer on American Idol. And so I was like, you know what? This is like the perfect time frame to that contract with American Idol started in August, September. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to phase out my retainers by December and then roll with the show and then basically launch kind of a new business in that next year. And that next year was 2020. So wait, is that right? No, I lied. Sorry. That was 2018 through 2019 is when Idol happened. So it allowed me to like envision what I wanted my business to be. And I thank you for your kind note about keynote speaking. I love teaching, whether it's on a webinar, which we did obviously for a while with the pandemic, speaking on a stage. So now my jam is more of like the one to many of how can I educate as many people as possible? Because when you're working in a retainer basis, it's hard, right? Like you're kind of it unless you're growing like a massive team and it's expensive. And I was like, okay, how can I make learning really accessible and teach a lot of nonprofits these things to grow and share their mission? So that's what I do. So I have courses, add courses and trainings on that side. And then I do have my more one-on-one program work where I build kind of a mini agency that over the course of 3 months helps build and launch monthly giving programs. And we work with 5-ish organizations at a time.
Got it. So before we dive into like the nuts and bolts of your business, we got to talk about the elephant in the room here, and that's American Idol. Like, what is it? Were you actually on like, I know you worked on campaigns. Did you get to interact with any of the staff on the show? And like, what was that like?
Oh yeah. Yeah. You are a member of the show. You are production. I traveled at every location when they're doing the auditions. You are on set every single day when we are filming. Yeah, 1000%. You are working those long days every single time. If there's cameras and lights, like our team was there capturing social content. So our job as a digital producer was to promote the show essentially on social to give the talent, which would be talent like on the stage performing, and hoping to become the American Idol, and the judges. So at the time, and still Katy Perry, Luke Bryan, Lionel Richie, Ryan Seacrest, Bobby Bones, content so that they can amplify the show on their platform. So on our team, I took more of the coach's role. So I was working with the Katy Perry, Luke Bryan, and their team on content, like watching out for, like we're sitting there watching the production happen. And so in our minds, we're like, ooh, that was a really great moment for Luke, or that was a really funny moment with Katy. Like note that so that we can pull that clip or that footage. Or is there something in real time that we're not necessarily banking, but we can use it before the show airs as promo? So yeah, it was a whirlwind. We had like, I forget what the stats were, but it's just amazing to work on something that large at scale where it's like 2 billion video views or something. And you're live television. So you're always on Twitter, right? Trending. And I'll never forget, our finale was also the night of the Game of Thrones finale, just to take people back to the time frame of this.
Okay.
So we were always thinking of really creative ideas and like how to get share of voice in the show moments.
That's awesome. And you really took it like one step further. I love your content. So like when I was doing research, and I'm sure you worked on many campaigns, so I was doing research on you because I want to have an idea of who I'm talking to, who I'm interviewing. I think that's important for me personally. And you did a couple really like just ninja tricks. Number one, you did the backstage with the Idol stars. I love this because so we have an upcoming event for a performing arts agency where we're doing backstage with the recipients, and it's like a similar take. And you did something so brilliant, so awesome. It's like loving the idea of connecting the audience to the contestants or to the recipients in this case, opposed to just being passive recipients of a program or a show. And the second thing you did, which I thought was brilliant, was you did the American Idol contest. Just a moment ago, you mentioned this, like reading tweets. And those tweets were about themselves. And I was like, wow, that's really
Yeah.
creative and authentic because you just get to know people on a personal level. And I
Yeah.
think now in this world where there's so much content, we're craving personal connection to human beings.
Yeah. And honestly, like, look, it's how can you reinvent the wheel? Like, it's not, I mean, the Oscars and shows like that have been doing backstage things all the time. Idol at the time hadn't. So it was, and it's a lot to orchestrate on a production that size. Is okay, we have to get time with the contestants beforehand because they're doing a bazillion things. There's press happening. What are the cameras we're going to use? What's the in those venues, internet is iffy. So how can we did a lot of testing who's going to be the host for that, which ended up being somebody with Radio Disney. Like that was a lot of work. And then we try and think about fun videos all the time. The reading of the tweets actually came from, I think it's Jimmy Kimmel that does it, the celebrity tweets. And so I saw it and I was like, we should totally do this with our contestants. Like they would think this is hilarious. So it's sometimes not even, I can't take credit for that idea.
I was wondering if it was you guys or him first. I was doing the research. I was like, that's curious. I wonder who did it first.
Except we didn't pull. He does like mean tweets. We didn't do mean tweets. We kept them nice.
It's just super cool. Super cool. Like developing those relationships with the people that are on the other side of the camera. One thing that I really admire and love about you and your message that you're sharing is like, so you came from this PR, this like agency where, how do I say this? You're coming from these agencies that have large agency budgets and deploying teams to figure these things out. But in the nonprofit side, we may not have those deep pockets, but it doesn't mean that the missions are any less powerful or important. And so what you say is you kind of take your skills and what you've learned from developing these agency brand strategy type digital content initiatives, and now you're employing those strategies on the nonprofit side. What are the most important things that you've learned from being in the corporate world that you think nonprofits might be missing out on? And it's like, wow, if you just do these couple things here, you've got it nailed.
Yeah, I think we have the tendency in the corporate, we like play around a lot with ideas and not everything's going to work. And we just try it. And if we fail, it's okay. And you try something else. The other thing is I think this has also definitely evolved in the time since I was in the agency world where, speaking to big budgets, there was not as much real and raw content as there is now, which is a huge benefit to organizations. Where I was just sharing in an email yesterday for Reels, for example, I was looking like a fool because we were talking about this beforehand, maternity content planning. And so I was walking around my house, filming myself with a tripod, drinking coffee, reading a book, sitting outside, journaling, going on a walk with my dog. And probably people are like, why is there a tripod watching her film? And it's literally, you can have those clips and then put text overlay.
Yep.
And it's that simple. I think, I mean, this could be for profit and nonprofit, but I think we overthink a lot. That would be the biggest. I think there's also a difference as far as staffing when it comes to for-profit and nonprofit. One of my biggest topics is you have to have somebody that is focused on digital. Have to, like in this day and age, digital, social, whatever that means, because it is really, it's impossible for your fundraiser development person to also be trying to think about social posts and do it in the right way, to also be thinking about email, to also be thinking about X. Like, it's just not conducive to the health of that person. And then also to like really like want to do it and want to do it well. So that's probably the biggest thing, is like the people that are available in the differences between the two.
Yeah, such a good point. What is what are you most excited about in the digital marketing and storytelling world right now? Is it just that in of itself? Is it like that smaller, like curated, but like really impactful, like quick hit soundbite type content, or what is it?
I think I'm fascinated with a couple of things, and I'm actually testing them as I'm prepping my content, is AI. I think like Chat GPT was like down this morning because it's so busy. I took a screenshot and put it on my stories. Thought it was hilarious. The website was overwhelmed. If you're not familiar with Chat GPT, it's literally this mind-blowingly amazing AI software where you can say, and I have a whole blog post that was basically written with it. Write me an SEO optimized blog post on blank, and it'll write it for you. And then it's like conversational, and you'll say, great, write me a summary of that blog post. Great, write me a LinkedIn post to go with that, or X, Y, and Z. Write me 10 email subject lines to share this blog post. And it understands the context. So that's interesting to me, which is automation. The other thing is mini chat. So I'm very curious about automations within, it's Instagram more specifically, but comment or DM said word, keyword, and then you'll get an automated response to trigger somebody to do something. And the other thing I'm really interested in is SMS. So I think we are bombarded with emails. I think snail mail has definitely a place, but I think some of it is so old fashioned. And we have our phones, our devices on us every second of every day. And we open our text messages. The conversion rate is massive. The open rates are massive. So those would be the three, I think, like AI, mini chat, so automations on social, and SMS.
I love it. You talk about like, content creation and curation, and we think it has to be something that is like super like formulated and has a bunch of strategy, and it should have some thought behind it, but that doesn't mean that it has to be incredibly difficult for you to be able to curate and create your own content. Like, for example, I know that you talk about events, and we are an event and video production company, or Utopia is, that sponsors the podcast, and I have the privilege of working at the company. And so like we are now using events, these transient and impermanent moments in time, to curate hundreds of pieces of content for organizations. Like, wow, you have this conference, hundreds of potential pieces of content there. You have this gala. Have you thought about maybe having like a red carpet step and repeat area where you can ask prospective donors or donors, why'd you show up tonight? What matters most about this organization? After they give, why'd you give? What can we do to keep you coming back? I mean, you have so many opportunities to just pull all this information and make an otherwise transient and impermanent experience last infinitely across time, because you've got all this video stuff now that is going to continue to work for you well beyond the event.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's where, I mean, that kind of goes back to the idol concept. Was every single audition and every single filming was, and some of them are live. When you think about an event, what can you bank and what can you post in real time, and have two different thoughts of that content creation plan.
Bank versus real time. Love it. Speaking of events, we had Tim Kachuriak on a few weeks ago, and he's a really great guy, super knowledgeable, really fascinating to chat with. Love you, Tim. Shameless plug for you and your group. And we talked about native digitals versus native analogs, which is a concept that I was first introduced to by a dear friend and mentor. His name's Christopher Lockhead. He wrote two books, Follow Your Different and Niche Down. And New York Times bestsellers, I think, don't quote me, but brilliant guy in the marketing space. And so he talks about native digitals like this new category NATO of human being that buys and engages with brands totally differently. He says, native digitals are under 35. Native analogs are over 35. Native digitals buy digital things. Native analogs buy analog things digitally. The biggest differentiation here is that native digitals do not remember a time before the internet, where native analogs do. Native digitals spend their time on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for approximately 1 billion minutes per day collectively, watching videos and sifting through content. So native digitals and digital strategies. What does digital marketing mean to you? And how do we reach this new category of consumers? Like, is there tips and tricks, like things that maybe a nonprofit should be doing? Like, I know we've talked about content creation, but are there things that they can just like not even think about, maybe doing on a daily basis or a weekly basis to up-level their digital strategy game?
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I think that's interesting because I'll be 34, and I'm right on the cusp of those two things. So I do remember a prior time to the
You
internet.
and, you and I are both right there. I still remember
Yeah.
the AOL dial-up in my ear.
Oh yeah, I remember. I remember. We had a computer in our den, which was next to my room upstairs where I grew up in Florida. And at curfew time, I would have to like leave the computer. And I remember I would sneak back into the den and I would put my sweatshirt or a blanket over the dial-up to like hide the noise, so they wouldn't hear the beep 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 beep. And I got away with it most of the time, just so I could like get on AIM and still be cool and talking to the older kids that were still online. But digital marketing and things that they can take away. I mean, I honestly learned the most from trying to look at my own habits. So that's the best. Like you are a donor to an organization, I'm sure. We are all consumers. When you stop scrolling on a post, pause. What made me stop on this? What do I like? When you stop on a Facebook ad, what did I really like about this Facebook ad? Oh, it took me to a website I purchased in 30 seconds. How did that happen? Why did I purchase so fast? Like just connecting the dots between user experience on things will help you naturally integrate those best practices into your organization. I think I was just having a conversation with a senior insights director at Salesforce, and off the topic of the podcast, we were talking about in our time frame right now, ever since Larry Fink, who was CEO of BlackRock years ago, and I remember when he did this, wrote like the purpose letter, it changed how corporations think about integrating purpose into what they do. So as nonprofits, there's now kind of this like competing, I mean, it's good, but almost competing nature of dollars, where let's just say, so I love the company Allbirds. Allbirds, it's like recycled materials. It's like all this like purpose driven, they give back. And so it's like, oh, in my mind, when I buy that sneaker, I'm giving back, right? And does that take the place of $100 donation that I would normally give to maybe a green, sustainable nonprofit? So that I think that's a really interesting standpoint that we're at, from also thinking about how easy is it to buy Allbirds? Is it more difficult for me to donate? What's the experience of what happens when I receive my Allbirds? What's the experience that happens when I give a donation? And I think they are literally should be kind of like one and the same. What are the emails? What are the text messages? What's the snail mail? Like, and there's ways to automate these and for them to not, you don't have to have big budgets. And like, I'm doing them in my business right now. It's how can you, what, like a company like Allbirds and what they do, like when they send out their shoes, there's like a note in there, right? It makes you feel so special and so proud to rock these shoes, right? It's part of your identity. Same thing should happen when you give to an organization, because there's a tie there. There's a reason that you give. But is there something that happens afterwards, or are you forgotten? And I think that's why there's such a low retention rate versus when you become a super fan of a brand, you're going to go back and I want more Allbirds.
So Tim was sharing, this is such a great, Tim was sharing last week, 60% of donors don't give again. That is a huge opportunity for an organization to come in and just do things a little bit differently, love on people a little bit more, and turn the chair around, which is a brilliant thing that you did at the NIO Summit last year during your keynote. Instead of being the sage on the stage of like, hey, listen to me for an hour and I'm going to tell you all these amazing things that I know. And there's no doubt you have a ton of knowledge up here that, you know, you have to share with individuals, but you actually turned towards the audience and you allowed them time to explore questions together, because you realize, like many of us do, that the opportunity for connection sometimes lies within your audience, your donor base, your prospective donor base, the foundations you're going after. And how do we take these passive recipients of content or program heavy info and convert them over to active participants? We always say people come for the content or the cause, they come back for the community. So yes, digital content is important, but then it's also like taking it one step further to engage with those individuals, figure out what motivated them and why, and how can you bring them into your ecosystem so that they feel seen, heard, loved on, and appreciated. Because people are not buying or donating because they understand. They're buying or donating or engaging with us because they feel understood. You help them feel understood. You connect with them on a human level, like what you and I were just doing a few minutes ago before we hit record, talking about how, you know, I have a newborn, you're about to have a newborn. And it's like life, you know, just connecting on life outside of business.
Absolutely. Yeah. So true. I mean, that those moments I think are so important, especially when you're on an event like Neo, which I love, it's just right up my alley. That Next After puts on Tim's team. There's so many people there, and you're sitting in an auditorium, and sometimes you'll never turn to the right or left and say anything to that person. So that was, I mean, that's what you're talking about. For those of you that aren't familiar, is I start off a presentation with asking people who have they recently given to and why, and introduce yourself. Say hey to the person behind you or in front of you. And what's funny is like it instantly creates, and it takes people like a second to come back because there's obviously conversation happening right there. And hopefully that continues after the fact.
I just had a real human moment in my mind where I'm like, you know what? I could have done a better job framing that for the audience because they had no idea what, the Neo. But anyway, thank you for doing that. I'm like, I'm still not perfecting because I'll never be perfect. None of us will. But yeah, it's like, I know and you know. So there's that assumption that the audience knows too.
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. That's what I'm here for.
I just want to take a quick 60 seconds and thank the sponsor of this episode, Utopia Experience. When looking for an event and video production company, many businesses just want easy AV at an affordable price, and they overlook the most important part of producing an event and telling a story, which is building community. All event and video production companies have similar technology. Not all companies have the Utopia edge. You'll likely agree that attendee expectations are at an all-time high. In this experience economy, every form of communication and every interaction has to have a form of uniqueness and personalization. That's where Utopia comes in. The greatest value that Utopia brings to clients is that they're fueled by curiosity, passion, and the desire to innovate. Most importantly, everything they do is aimed at scaling connection and uniting hearts at speed and scale. And that means taking an otherwise transient and impermanent event experience and making it transformational so it can live infinitely across time, transcending the four walls of your venue forever. Through unforgettable event experiences and thoughtful storytelling, Utopia Experience's mission is to help those that help the world. Thank you, Utopia, for sponsoring the episode. We really appreciate it. So, what have we not talked about that you want to talk about before we wrap up and go into the final questions?
Oh my gosh, that's like a large topic or a bunch of things that we could go into there. I don't know. I would just say to be open-minded. I would say to allow yourself time for learning and being curious. If that happens, like listening to a show like this. That's why I created Missions to Movements, was I hope to share. I wanted to, with the show, take people behind the feed of the things that they see and they think might be so hard or expensive or impossible to do. And one of like my favorite stories is everyone looks at Charity Water, right, as this behemoth, and they are. And when I had Cubby Graham on, I asked, and they did this beautiful World Water Day campaign with Pantone. And I was like, that was so brilliant. Like, how did that come to be? And he's like, Dana, it happened 2 weeks beforehand through an Instagram DM conversation. Like, boom, like we can all do that. I think that those are the things, like, how can we uncover and spend time listening to case studies, learning, being curious, and testing.
Love it. And then taking that and building an outreach strategy around it, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to share a little bit about that? Because that was super cool. Something you shared a moment ago on the podcast recording. And then before we hit record, you said you're planning for maternity leave and you're building a content strategy. Like, what does that look like? How are you able to step away from your business for an extended period of time as you embark on this new adventure and chapter in your life? And like, what does that content strategy look like to keep people engaged in your ecosystem?
Yeah, it's honestly something I've put a lot of thought into because I wanted to think smarter and not make this super hard on myself. So I always go back to data. Google Analytics is free. And I looked last year, and I have been looking at it, but haven't really taken actionable insights and swallowed my own pill of medicine there. And looking at, in Google Analytics, it can tell you which social channels are driving the most web traffic. And now, looking just at the numbers of web traffic, Facebook is going to always be top for me because I run Facebook ads. So that's always going to be the case. The numbers that I was paying attention to were the bounce rate of the channels, time spent on the website, and average page views. So all year long, YouTube was number one.
Hmm.
YouTube, people were spending 4 to 5 minutes on my site compared to a minute or less for the others. The bounce rate was 50% or lower. It was more than 2+ pages, but my least amount of traffic was coming from there because it's just not a place where I've spent a lot of time, money, and energy. So I hired a YouTube management company starting this year so that they are going to help me. And part of the issue is bandwidth. Um, so they're part of my strategy is I'm going to launch 2 videos a month. They're going to strategize what those videos are. They are going to edit them. They are going to publish them. They are writing the SEO descriptions because YouTube is also a search engine platform. So like that's one component. The other side is I normally pick a primary and a secondary social platform. YouTube technically isn't a social channel. It's a search engine optimization channel. Instagram and LinkedIn are my two other loves and also do well for me on a data side. So on Instagram, and I can report back on these findings with you, I have, if you go to my account, I have deleted, archived, and moved reels off of my feed. And I'm going to have just 9 posts. It's going to be a 9 grid that is going to answer very specific questions about who I am, what I do, my services. And then you can comment, like, for example, in one of them, it's let me reintroduce myself. And you can comment services. And yes, it is using the Jay-Z song. You can comment services and then it will automatically DM you a message from me with a link to some resources that might be helpful for you. So on Instagram, I'm just having the 9 grid. And then I'm just going to have reels scheduled out that are going to go out just on the reel, but not on my main feed. So that's Instagram. And then there'll be some stories. And then LinkedIn is going to be a promotional feeder for my podcast episodes are going to be planned out. And in December, I did, which I highly recommend, I did a survey to my email list and I asked them 2 questions. It was really simple. What are 3 things that you feel like you're rocking at, that you've got down solid? And then what are 3 things that are priorities that you really want to work on that you think you're struggling on? And I went through those and I have highlighted things that have popped up a lot. And those are going to be what podcast episodes are on and what blog posts are on. And those are going to go out on LinkedIn. And part of that will be on YouTube too. So that's kind of how I'm formulating it. I'm going to use, from a tech platform perspective, I'm using Later to do my scheduling. And that's kind of how, and that's what I'm doing. And then the only other thing outside of that will be emails. So I will have emails pre-drafted, and then I have a virtual assistant who's going to help actually get those out for me.
Love it. So if someone's listening right now, there's an audience member that wants to work with you. Can you help us understand, who are the clients who's an ideal client for you? They find themselves dealing with this particular situation, or if they find themselves dealing with this particular situation, then they should reach out.
Yeah, I think if you are an organization or an individual that wants to see growth, you want to increase your visibility, you want to increase your brand awareness, you want to increase the emails, passionate emails to your organization, which then becomes donors. I work with you a lot on the ad side of that. And there's DIY courses. If you are an organization that wants more individual and a diverse donor base, and to get rid of that 60% of donors don't give again, and you want more retention, then I would say definitely reach out to me about my mastermind program for the monthly giving program. I would say those are probably the 2 main ways. Or if you have an event and you want a killer speaker that's fun and cool, and can teach you some actionable tips, then of course reach out to me too.
Love it. And it's very economical, right? To reach out to you and to take your boot camp. It's a very low investment for the amount of value that you get back. And I'm sure spending one-on-one time with you is of course more expensive. And I'm sure you have other service offerings, but very low commitment financially to at least get your feet wet in Dana's platform and go online and enroll in her mini ads course for your social media.
$27.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I was going to say $30. Like, come on, we can all afford $30. We spent that in a week in Starbucks. And I'm sure the value that you're going to get back out of that mini ad course is just invaluable.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been amazing. I actually got an email from someone. She was doing more of like my leads generation course. And I love these emails. She's like, hi, you don't know me, but I'm on your email list and I follow these instructions. And this is what happened. And it's blown my mind. Never thought about it in this way. And they are killing it. And so we had a whole email exchange. And then I did a podcast episode about her case study. And so that literally is why I do it. I do, and it lights me up. And so if you do take any of my courses, please email me. I love to hear from you. I'm a real person.
You're such a beacon of light. Like it comes across like just in talking to you, in your marketing, in your, the posts that you put out there. You
Thanks.
just, I don't know. I love that you're so purpose driven and you're doing business for all the right reasons. And you're really helping those that help the world, which is our mantra. It's like, how can we use business as a force for good and pay it forward and just help people? And I love
Thank
that you're
you.
doing that.
Life's too short to not be full of light, right?
It's so true. It's so true. How can we just make, I think it's a Vince Lombardi quote. And it's like, if you laugh and you cry and you hug all in a 24-hour span, you've had a good day.
That sounds like an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah. Maybe you're doing all of those, you're embarking on this journey. You're going to have a newborn soon. I have a 3-week-old.
I'll probably laugh, cry.
All of those in a 5-minute span.
I was about to say, yeah, exactly.
So my last question before we go into the questions that we ask every guest is that, as the CEO of your company, you asked your audience, what are you doing well? What are your strengths? What are your opportunities? What are the biggest opportunities for you? Like, what are the challenges or opportunities you're currently facing?
I mean, I think this is going to be a really big learning curve for me, like going into this leave. I've never taken this much time away from my business. And I think I'm turning into a mom. I'm turning into a different person. I have no idea what she's going to be like. So come April, Dana Snyder might be a very different human being. We shall see. So I think that's a challenge and an opportunity. Honestly, like that's the most relevant one. And I'm kind of just going with the flow. My word of 2023 is harmony, because I don't necessarily believe in balance. I think balance is kind of like all over the place, but I would like to be in harmony in the things that I do, and harmonious within work and being a mom and figuring all that out.
I love it. That's awesome. By the way, welcome to the club of being a girl mom / girl dad.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm a girl dad. By the way, I highly recommend this. So someone got me this as a gift. My brother and my sister-in-law got me this booklet as a gift for Christmas. And it's letters to my baby girl. And you said harmony. I started and you can't see it, but I started writing letters to her.
That's so cool.
That hopefully, more than anything, this documents her life and how her mom, Stephanie, and I have raised her, how we've tried to instill great beliefs in her and vision and values, and how we support her and love her. And it just kind of comes from our eyes for her to look back later in life when she needs it. She just needs a pick me up, or, we're dead and gone, which hopefully isn't for a very long period of time. But I just thought that was
very
super
cool.
Thoughtful. It's sitting on my desk and just thought I'd share for
love that.
You're going to be a new parent.
Yeah, thank you.
Final questions. These are the questions that we like to ask every single guest, as it helps us get to know you a bit deeper. And here they are. What is your favorite book, movie, or podcast show? Besides yours and this one.
Yeah, for sure. I would say one of my favorite books, it's sitting right behind me. Good is the New Cool by Afdel Aziz and Bobby Jones. Why? Because it made me quit my corporate job and start my company. If
Amen.
that's not enough said, go read it. It's bright orange. It's on Amazon. Good is the New Cool. I won't even go into the details. Just do it.
Love it. What matters most to you in life?
I'd say right now, this should be always, I'd say health, because I think that dictates everything.
Favorite place that you've traveled to and why?
This one's a bit of a shocker because it's not beautiful from like a visual perspective. Cologne, Germany. It was the last stop on my husband and I's like European trip we took a couple years ago, and it looks interesting because it was destroyed in World War II, except for the famous cathedral. So everything that was built has this very interesting, like 70s style, which was kind of ugly. But I am fascinated by World War II history. So taking walking tours of that city just really opened my eyes to all of the stories and historical findings of that town.
Love it. Love it. What is one thing that you'd like to brag about right now without judgment? And this can be about yourself and your personal accomplishments, your professional accomplishments and achievements, your team, your partner, your community, becoming a mom, like anything that you're really proud of right now in this moment.
Oh, it's such a good question. I mean, I think I'm really proud, since we're on a podcast platform, I think I'm really proud of launching my show last year. I launched the show in March of 2022. I launched it with like a month and a half runway, and it was generating revenue by the second month. And I'm 52 episodes in. So I've kept it up. I think with podcasting, something that happens a lot of times is they die out. They're a lot of work. And if you're doing it right, your editing team, it's an expense and it's a lot of time to work on it. So they can die out quickly. And so I think I'm really proud of the fact that it's continuing to grow and get more downloads, and just the guests that I've had. It honestly is so much fun. I love it.
Really cool that you've only been at it for like a year, and
Yeah.
you're you were on my radar when I got on Google and looked up top nonprofit podcasts. You were in the top 5.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Oh,
I'd
that's
have to go
cool.
back and find the article, but there were like 2 or 3 articles that mentioned your podcast. And I'm like, I want to go out and try and get her on our show.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah. That's
That's
really
so
cool.
nice.
So it's amazing that you're impacting and touching lives of people that you don't even realize that you're connecting with. And
Yeah.
those
And I
people
think
write
that's
articles about
where,
you.
like, when the random and like leave a review, listeners, like leave a review for this show because they are going to appreciate it so much. I think we undervalue those things, and it takes 5 seconds, like at the bottom of Apple, to hit those 5 stars, leave a quick sentence. And right, it makes our day to see those.
It really does. It really does. Because I mean, we're not doing this for right now for the revenue. Hopefully, there'll be other organizations that come on in the future and sponsor it and underwrite it, and that's awesome. But like for us, this is just something where we're trying to get out there and have awesome conversations with entrepreneurs that are doing the work in the world that matters and paying it forward and creating community and highlight their stories. And to get a 5-star review would mean the world to us, because it's like it's validating. It's like, wow, the
Yeah.
time we put into this, and it's tons of time. Just
Yeah.
canvassing and figuring out the guests and interviewing and the research and then the post editing and chopping it up into sound bites, which we'll send you. We're going to take this 40-minute interview and parse it out into like emotional, like 25 emotional beats. We'll send all of that to you so you can repurpose that as content of your own. The last question, and I have to ask this because it's really what enables us to find great guests like you, is there someone else that you really admire that you think our audience might benefit from if we were to interview them on the show?
Yes, I have. Oh my gosh, I have so many. um, I would say one. I'm going to give you two. Mallory Erickson. I don't know if you know her already, but she's a dear friend of mine. She's a fundraising consultant in the space and founder of Power Partners. She's just a gem of a human. She is my business bestie. We're talking all the time about things in the nonprofit space. We go to conferences together. She's amazing. And then on the nonprofit side, I just actually released an interview with her, and it was awesome to learn from her, is Diana Dorsey Calloway. And she is the co-founder alongside Ryan Reynolds and David Greiner of The Creative Ladder.
I listened to that podcast today.
You did?
I did.
Yeah. So
Fascinating story.
Yeah, so cool. I mean, how they launched, how he like reached out to her blows my mind.
And she's so modest about it
Hi,
too.
this is Ryan. Ryan
She's like, I got to
Reynolds.
call you back.
Fuck yeah. I'm getting married. So good.
That's amazing. Okay, cool. Well, Mallory and tell me her first name again.
Diana.
Diana, we're going to reach out and hope to have you on the podcast soon. All right, friends, the audience, hope you appreciated this message and feel inspired by Dana and the work that she's doing. Reach out to Dana. Dana, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I shouted them out. LinkedIn is a great place to find me. Just search Dana Snyder, or on Instagram, it's Positive Equation with 1E.
And we'll put all of this in the show notes. Dana, any last words of wisdom for the audience?
Have fun, man. Just have fun with content. Explore new things. Be curious.
Love it. Thank you so much. Hey, that's it, folks. Dana Snyder, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. You digital marketing guru, you.
This is so fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, Dana. Hey, if this episode was valuable to you, then share it with someone that you love, someone that you know that could benefit from it. Also, be sure to subscribe, and depending on how you're listening, go ahead and leave a comment or review. This will help ensure that we are connecting with other nonprofit leaders so that we can get this critical information out to them. And if your company is in the early or even late stages of putting on an event, go to our website, utopiaexperience.com, and click the Book Us tab and schedule a free discovery call to see if our services would be a right fit for your event. And even if they're not, that's okay. I promise you our expertise can steer you in the right direction, so you'll get value either way. Thanks for listening to the Impact Roadmap, and we'll see you next time.